I'm Heide Hackman from the International Social Science Council. I also want to thank all the organizers for a terrific meeting, thank ICSU, and inform Professor Skegg that you're also a member of the International Social Science Council. So in the interests of defragmentation, what I wanted to say is that in the outcomes of this meeting, the ISSC indeed is very keen to help support the follow-ups and to work closely with ICSU in taking this forward. I also want to thank those of you in the audience who've put the social sciences so clearly on the agenda. It's a huge relief to me to come to a meeting and not be the only one that has to do that. So thank you very much. It's been a great meeting and I've enjoyed the 2 days very much.
Thank you. At the risk of being rude and ungrateful, can we keep, just to allow everybody to get through, I don't need to be thanked and congratulated by other people. Could we just keep to the questions, because we want to finish by 4. Thanks. John?
I apologize for even intervening again, but it did strike me that there's a line of thought that and of practice that has gotten nowhere near enough attention here. And that is, there's been references to it being a contact sport, but, and actually the last intervention was relevant too. There are modes of interacting with policymakers which are much more intensive. They're seriously around the table with two-way discussions, carefully prepared, homework done, evidence assembled. That in our system has gone viral. We have about 50 ongoing fora, and policymakers find that very useful. It's a real-time feedback as opposed to waiting the classical 18 months to get a formal advisory thing. I think there's a lot of interesting aspects of that, and that it would be really interesting to understand other experiences with what one might call informal advisory mechanisms, and I think that's a rich vein we could mine.
I agree.
Thank you.
I agree.
Thank you, and this is Yonong Lu from Chinese Academy of Sciences again. This is a wonderful starting point, should I say, that even though I don't think in the future the Chinese government will copy this system, but I'm hoping that in the future and we can also share our advanced mechanism systems here. In my personal opinion here, this time mostly we are listening to so-called supplying science opinions on science advances. We are saying that how important science advances, but we would like in the future we have more opinions from demand side, not only from policymakers. We should have the stakeholders, different stakeholders. And just before I left Beijing, I had discussions with British scientists. We are working together on a small workshop, and we're trying to reach different stakeholders for how to translate science to policy, just in terms of food and agriculture development. And we went to different departments and they have different opinions, different viewpoint. So I think it's very, very important to get, demand side views heard. This is thank you again for inviting me here and to get some Chinese voice heard here.
Okay, thank you. This is Matthias Kaiser again from the University of Bergen in Norway, and I shall try to be brief, so no thank you or anything. 3 comments though. The first one is an open wish. It has been many times been pointed out the need to, whenever there is a concrete issue, to put social science, natural science, things together to have interdisciplinary approaches. Now, many of us are used to discussions or from research council where there are calls, we need to have more of that. What I'm really looking for is what is done. Do we have any sort of best practice models? Do we have good examples of interdisciplinary research that we could use for common learning? I think there is still an incredible need for that. It would be nice if that could be addressed. So this was my first comment. Second comment is about uncertainty. It has again been mentioned here in many talks, the the issue of scientific uncertainty, which you started with, and say this is the typical case, right? Whenever there is an advice needed, there's a lot of uncertainty. Yes, what is disturbing is that there is also that uncertainty is very often addressed in a very naive way. Uncertainty comes in many dimensions. And it has been, actually there has been work since 1990, since the book Uncertainty and Quality in Science or Policy has been published. There has been important work been done, especially in the Netherlands, about uncertainty mapping in different disciplines. And there have been several kind of approaches which are much more advanced, right? So what I'm looking for is really the integration of this kind of uncertainty mapping in, for example, the kind of advice. I just point to the website www.newsup.net, for more information. So this is comment number 2. The third one is about what has been discussed. I agree, I'm a little bit belated here, but science and values. And very often I heard from several commenters, they're saying that, oh yes, we have to stick to the evidence, to the facts, and we leave, so to speak, the values to the policymakers. I think that is overly simplifying, and you said also that there is a fuzzy area. Actually, I would go further. I would say many times we need to address knowledge we have about values. There is knowledge. There is a lot of important rational things to say about values that needs to enter the policy process. I was leading a European research project, Value Isobars, which was taking up these things. You take an example like biometrics. Typically, it is portrayed by decision makers as a choice between, say, security on the one hand versus privacy on the other. Now, if you look at social realities and have surveys with people, you find out that the situation is much more complex. There's a value landscape which includes, for example, trust, right? So these things have to be brought forward. Again, I would say there's research on values. And furthermore, I would also say, even though it's very important that science advice cannot be advocacy, I agree totally with that. But in most of these areas, we are sometimes bound to enter the same platforms as, for example, NGOs, because they are disturbing the picture. So we had a project on aquaculture in Asia, where there were, YouTube videos out from Nature Conservation Society in Sweden that were calling for boycotts of shrimp from Bangladesh. Now, our research showed that all the claims they had were wrong. Basically, they were basically lies. So that means you have to enter on the same level. So we produced also a video, but it's very difficult to do that. We were not, of course, propagating to eat it or not to eat it, but we have to get the facts right, and we have to address these people. So I just want to say this area of being an advocate or not, it's very critical, but you have to engage with these people.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. My name is Satoru Otake, Japan Science and Technology Agency. First of all, I appreciate, congratulations for organizing this very historical first event for gathering the people from related to science advice. We think as well, we share the importance of science advice in recent days. And GST is the one basically the funding agency for policy driven research. But we have a think tank which Dr. Arimoto is belonging to, CRDS. So we are not only funding the research, but we are supporting the such kind of policy making to Cabinet Office as well as Ministry of Education's Culture, Sports, Science and Technology. And also we are working together with our Council for Science and Technology, Science, Technology and Innovation Policy, where Dr. Harayama is the executive member. So in that sense, we are very appreciate also Professor Weston to have a nomination in this meeting 4 years from now in Japan. Yes, because of the reason of international, regional, and national reason, we think it's important that this kind of meeting is continuously happened. And we're willing also to have it in Japan because in Japan as well, as Dr. Harayama mentioned, that after 2011, we have some serious thought about improving our science advice system. Of course, we have been making progress for long years, but it is necessary to have it more speed to innovate it. So in that sense, I cannot confirm 100% today, but if everybody think this meeting is important, and if it is continued to every 2 years, we are willing to prepare for the hosting the 2018.
Thanks very much. Thank you. I'm just conscious of time, so can we try and keep comments fairly short, because I want to make sure we hear from everybody. Yes.
Great. Michael Halpern, Union of Concerned Scientists. I've had so many great hallway conversations and lunch conversations. I would love a list of everybody who is here, if possible, if that could be circulated. Some way of connecting people who had the benefit of participating in this with those who couldn't make the trip over here, not just in a developing world context, but also among younger people who are chomping at the bit to get involved in these kinds of discussions, pulling in speakers at all career levels, more discussion about how the casual science advisor can provide science advice not only at the federal level but at all levels of government, and how to best facilitate those interactions. You talk a little bit about the democratization of science. We can also talk about the democratization of science advice, so that there are people at all levels who are advising people at all levels. Also discussing the barriers to participation that exist. You don't get tenure based on the number of meetings you have with government officials. How transformation of media impacts the delivery and acceptance of science advice. We've seen a lot of changes over the past few years. And then I think it's important to carve out space to distinguish between advocacy for policy and advocacy for the role of science in policymaking, or the efficient use of science in policymaking, and the kind of things that get in the way.
Thanks, Michael. Yes.
Thank you very much. I am Susan Muzite, Executive Director of the Research Council of Zimbabwe. I wish to express great appreciation to the organizers of this conference, and also appreciation to the support of ICSU. And I was happy to note that ICSU will support publication of a detailed report, and that there is plans for future meetings in the interest of inclusivity and capacity development of participants from the developing world or emerging economies. I would appeal to the organizers to perhaps seek donor funding to support publication of some of the literature that was mentioned here, so that it is available, perhaps completely or a significant part of it on the web, so that we can read from wherever we are. We may not be able to pay subscriptions, but however, having this literature will then assist us to convince our principals to continue participating. Thank you.
Just to answer those last 2 points from Michael and from Zimbabwe, my office has undertaken to continue to maintain the website that was built up for this meeting, which has a lot of resource material attached to it. It will be added to, it will be kept alive. within the bounds of copyright.